Hmm.
Good.
So Gary might have his camera turned on.
Yes.
Well, Mary, it's nice to have you back. You're not going to move to Florida, are you?
I didn't know what. Mary? Here's Troy. So Mary, question. If members are ill at
Troy
home
just
and
did.
can't make it, they can still be counted.
Hello,
as
Troy.
being present? I think there was an exception for that.
Glad to have you here.
Troy.
What are you trying to do?
We're giving you special, no. Isn't that official?
Wow.
Have you? Nobody else has one.
Yeah, and Gary. Pat are on
I'm here. I can see you.
Yeah.
It is 10 o'clock. Are we able to start the meeting? Are we online?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody, to the
Morning.
first meeting of the Geologic Safety Committee in this new year of 2024. I think it's going to be quite a year of accomplishments by the committee. Certainly, the committee is busy and is going to remain quite busy. So, welcome to the meeting and Happy New Year. The first order of business is always to ask the members of the town who might want to communicate with us that this is the time to do so for items that are not on the agenda. So is there anybody who would like to communicate with us about anything, especially having to do with geology of the town?
Gary, can I mention something at this? Or, Chet, can I mention something at this point?
Yes, if you wish to.
There's an event coming up at the end of the month that some of us might be interested in. It's the 2024 Northern California Earthquake Hazards Workshop. And it's a 3-day thing from January 30th to February 1st, both virtual and online. It's open, but you do need to register in advance. So if you can find it if you Google 2024 Earthquake Hazard Workshop or something like that. There's sessions on how climate change increases earthquake vulnerability. I guess I've been asked to moderate that one, although I don't really know what it entails.
Yeah.
Look back at 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake early warning around the world, and then a session that focuses on the 2023 earthquake on the North Anatolian Fault, which is kind of an analog to the San Andreas. And then after slip around the world was the last time. Anyway,
Where will this be held?
I think for most people it'll be online, but I think there's in-person sessions at Moffett Field.
Oh, so this is sponsored by the Geological Survey?
It is. It's an annual thing. And
Well, that would
3
give us,
full days and
that would give
open
us,
to-
for those who would want to go, that would give us a chance to see the new survey headquarters at Moffett Field. The survey has completely moved out of its old headquarters on Middlefield Road in Menlo Park. Not everybody who has had to move over there is very happy with the accommodations, but anyway, it's happened and we might get a chance to be there. If there are no further comments from the public or anybody, we will move on with the agenda. Pat has worked up the agenda for today and did a nice job on it. First item of business is always the minutes of the past meeting. I have read the minutes and they are very good. I think probably, well, anyway, they're good. I see no changes. Do any of you have changes or corrections you'd like to
Nope.
see to the minutes? Would somebody like to propose that we approve
Acceptance
them.
of the minutes of the meeting.
All those in favor?
Do we have a
Aye.
second? Do we have a second? Wait, who proposed?
I did. Gary Ernst. Can you hear me?
Oh, Gary, it's a voice out of the ether. Okay, Gary.
Yeah.
proposed.
Well, I can hear you. Can you hear me though? Oh, good. Well, I did propose that we accept the minutes of the meeting
Okay,
as
I
soon as
second.
possible.
Okay, I second Gary's
Good.
proposal. Yeah,
How many?
yeah. Can you enable, you can enable chat. Oh, we can't? Is this a webinar? I don't think it is because I can just sign on. But it's not a webinar because I don't think it's a webinar. Anyway. Can't chat on a webinar, but,
We had a second for the minutes.
I seconded, I've already seconded, yes.
All in favor of the minutes as they are written?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody have anything further to say about the minutes? In that case, I think we can move on to what I believe
Oh,
is
wait.
truly,
Chad, I do have a comment. I commend Pat for having gotten the minutes on one page for the second time in a row. So thank you, Pat. You did a really good job of summarizing the meeting.
minutes are very good and I read them carefully. All right, I think it's
It's
time
on the
to
other side
move
of
on
the
to
list.
what is, I believe is the main subject of today. Certainly a very important subject, which is the work that the subcommittee of this committee has done on the seismic aspect of the town evacuation committee. I know that Bob and Nan have worked very hard on this. And Bob has spent endless hours working on maps and is still working on them. They're not finished yet by his standards. So I'll let Nan, would you like to start
Yeah.
telling us about where the subcommittee is in its work, and where it wants to go with this topic?
Thank you, Chet. Yeah, we have done quite a bit of work, Bob and Gary and I. And in the, I don't have a hard copy to hand out, but in the agenda online, there is the meeting packet for this meeting. There's a copy of the new version, new draft of the evacuation plan for
Excuse
What?
me,
for wildfire.
we're going to be able to see a copy of the map that's been worked on.
We'll see if we can, I see if I can get a copy,
Do we have a copy here?
if I can share my screen. I can get a copy of the map, but let me talk about the text first and then we'll go to the map, okay? A little bit about the text.
I know,
Um,
I'm asking about the map specifically. I would like it.
Yeah, well, no, we will. Yes, well, but I wanted to cover the text
but not-
briefly
not-
first,
but not
briefly,
now.
and then very soon, in about 2 minutes, the map, okay? Please.
All right, we'll go ahead.
And then we will go to the map. The text was revised throughout just a little bit here and there. And I revised it. Gary looked at it. He says he agrees. And the main change from the last version you saw is that we took the map from the appendix and put it up front. So the order goes summary, one-page summary, and then there's a little bit about the history of faulting in the area, and then the map, the big map, which Bob has managed to put on 2 pages landscape. So if you put the 2 pages together, you see all of Portola Valley. It's really quite magnificent. And one other thing I wanted to say was that I'm in contact with the Emergency Preparedness Committee and contacted Woodside Fire Protection District, and I'm going to try to get a meeting with them to talk about this. So we'll see. They have a copy of the old draft and the new draft, and I'm waiting to hear from them about a meeting. So that's it about the revisions, unless anyone has any specific comments about the text. We should go to the map, and I have a mea culpa. I was trying to change one little tiny thing on Bob's map, on one of the maps, and I messed up some of the labels. So if you see a messed up label, it's not Bob's fault, it's mine, and it's not in the original. And that'll be changed back. So I'm going to try to, if Bob, you want to start talking about the map, I'll try to get a copy up on the screen. Okay.
This is the first time that the committee as a whole is able to see what the subcommittee has done. Both the map that Bob has been in its present form and the text in its present form. And that's why I hope that we can see some of that today. This is our first opportunity, and we get the same opportunity as members of the public today. After today, the committee as a whole, will know something about this work that the subcommittee has been doing. So this is a very important day, and that's why I was hoping that we would have a copy of the map and we could gather around and look at it together. Bob, tell us what you can about the map.
I'm going to put it on the screen, which people will be able to see, I think.
Well,
But you might have
that's
to.
not very comfortable. It's not very good. And maps are things that you have to look at carefully at close range to understand them. Most geologists know that. And so this distant look is not very good. So if by chance we can't see that today, I hope that at the next meeting, we will be able to continue discussion about the work of the subcommittee, have a printed copy of the maps that can be put on the table here, and we can all gather around and look at it carefully together. Bob can explain the details.
Okay.
And that would help enormously.
It would.
May I make a quick statement, Nan and Chet? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have the report open on my computer screen, and I see as figure 1, which is a terrific index map showing the old epicenters, and then the two panel figure 2, which is the map itself. That's the sort of thing, it seems to me, that most of our home residents want to see. They want to see where the roads are out, how to get in and out, how to save themselves. What Chet is talking about, it seems to me, is what professionals, the geologists, want to see in terms of detail. You need a lot more detail than these two 8.5 by 11s. But the 8.5 11s already on the report, as most recently printed, really shows that those sorts of things that our neighbors are all going to want to see. What we want to see in terms of the total picture is what Chet is talking about. And I don't think most of the homeowners are going to want to unfold a 20 by 30 map when they can look at a 8 by 11 brochure, which is what we're putting out.
But at least the bigger map is available, and
yeah,
and that's available for the people who really want to see details. And I personally would look forward to seeing this map in front of us, and with Bob pointing out anything that we want him to point out about it. I'm glad that you have the maps in front of you on your computer screen, but we don't all have that opportunity today.
Okay, it's on the large screen. which
Yes, I
we
know
can't
that it's up there, but that's not like having it right in front of us. And with Bob pointing to things that we can all see, we could all gather around and look at it. And I hope that at the next meeting, we can do that. I know it's on the screen down here. That's a help. Bob, do you want to talk about the map in various ways? This is Bob's work. Bob has spent endless hours making the map. And he still wants to work more on them. They're not finished.
Okay, I have a message from Pat, who has a question. She says she's going to try to contribute by text, so I've got her on text here. She says the maps are beautiful and has a question. Do we need to include sewage system in our evaluation? I put it in once and I didn't put it in the other two places for utilities. So we probably should. To me, sewage is a nice to have, but it's not necessary, as quite so necessary as water, which you need for fighting fires as well as drinking. So I put it in the lower priority category, but perhaps we should mention sewage because the sewage pipes will be disrupted as well as water and any electrical undergrounding and gas pipes. So we could add sewage. Bob, do you have and Gary, do you have thoughts on that?
On the big map, I think that's true. You do need all that information. But residents who are trying to escape during an emergency are only going to look to see if the roads are open or not and take their leave from the area as soon as possible, or people to need to get in and help fight fires and stuff like that. So there are two different problems, I think. And I think Chet's misunderstanding. I think for the professionals, you really do need the big map with everything on it. But for the people who are simply living here, who don't care much one way or the other about the geology, they want to know how to deal with getting in or out in an emergency. And that's all I'm saying. We need this. What's in the paper in our report is good for them, but for us, we need the big map. I agree with Chet on that for sure. We should have, because that's where the master control is on what the geology is. We need all the data that allow us to decide what the control is.
Ultimately, everybody in the town really needs to see at least a small map and understand it. And that's going to be a job for local leaders to take on. This is a very important thing for the town, this evacuation. And the geologic aspects of it are things that people in general don't know very much about. They need to know. They need to know long before any event. And so there is going to have to be a lot of work in the town by local leaders in neighborhoods so that everybody thoroughly understands what to do, what might happen, what some of the problems are. And I hope that that takes place. I think we have a long way to go to reach that goal. So let's hope we do. Bob, do you have more things that you'd like to talk to us about concerning your work on the map?
So I'm over here on this end of the table because I tried to speak earlier and I think the microphones that are at my chair are not working. I don't see any red lights or green lights, and I didn't hear my voice booming over the speakers of this room. So we're having technical problems, and I apologize for that. Maps. There are First of all, an apology to the committee and everybody in the room because I had planned to bring some printed copies of the map so that people could look at it, and that didn't happen, and that's on me. I'm sorry. There are actually two maps. There's the map that's included in there's a newer version of the map that's been included in the packet. The differences are very minor. Mostly the pattern that's used to show the minor part of liquefaction has been upgraded. And the portion of Alpine Road, upper portion of Alpine Road between Joaquin and Willowbrook has now been, on the new map, has been highlighted in red because that's an area that in a big earthquake could probably be closed because of landslides and or debris fall onto the road.
Bob, where is this? I'm sorry. Where is it exactly?
It would be on the next sheet down on the backside of Coal Mine Ridge. It's not on the version that's on the screen, but between Willowbrook Road and Joaquin, I'm just describing what's the changes between what's on the latest version and what you're seeing on your screen. There's really two changes. One is the pattern that shows minor liquefaction has been changed, just the appearance of it. And the other big significant change is that Alpine Road between Willowbrook and Joaquin, that's the backside of Coal Mine Ridge, now has a bold red line in the background to show that in an earthquake, that portion of Alpine Road is probably going to be unpassable as it was in 1906 because of landslides and debris flow onto the road. And there's also the same red bold line added to a portion of Los Trancos Road going up to the entrance of Buck Meadow, of Blue Oaks, which is Buck Meadow Drive. For the same reason, there's a red berry ridge has been identified on the town's ground movement potential map as having several ravines where there could be debris flow that would then fall down onto Los Trancos Road. So in short, people who live in Blue Oaks and Los Trancos Woods are going to be in trouble because it's going to be difficult probably if those kinds of events happen in a big earthquake.
I want to add that the landslide areas with landslide potential, or where the landslides could impact the roads, are not quite yet shown on this map. Bob's been working on. They're not there.
I know. It's like I said, they
I'm
have.
sorry, I guess I didn't hear you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The other change that I'd like everybody to know is that I've been working on essentially two sets of maps. The one that's in the packet is at a scale of 1 to 34,000. I've also been maintaining a nearly identical set that doesn't really have any change in. There's no difference in data. It's just a question of scale and size. A set of maps or a map that's at 1 to 24,000, which is the same scale as USGS 7.5 minute quadrangles. And I'll be happy to make that available to anybody. But as far as something to send out in the document, there's been opinions expressed by Gary and Nan. I hope I'm representing your opinions correctly, but that this one that's in the packet, which is 1 to 34,000 scale, seems to work well to be able to print things out on 2 pieces of paper, which should be adequate for most people in the town. And yes, there are people who want to see details, and the bigger scale would be better. One last comment or 2 more comments. Pat, you had asked about being able to show things like sewage. One of the areas that's not in this map is utilities, other than the roads themselves. And in order to do that, we would have to have access to where the utilities are. And I don't have that. I mean, I suppose we could get it as I think that's a topic that we should consider and add into the future.
Let's discuss that a little bit later.
Yeah, we can discuss that more, but thank you for that suggestion.
I think that would be a marvelous addition to the map. knowing what a utility cost is.
Well,
Or, well, I agree, for the professionals, for the town staff, for the fire district, and maybe for some interested individuals, but most people are just interested in how they can get out in
I'm
case of a
quite aware
fire.
of that.
So that we may have two maps for two different purposes and maybe maps showing different amounts of detail.
I think that's a good idea. It's nice to see this map out there, but it's too far away. All the details, missing details that we might want to point to and ask about. And I'd like Bob to explain to the group something that he's told me a lot about that is of concern. And that is Portola Road, some of the roads here are built on fill that could be
Compromise.
in an earthquake. And most people in the town know nothing about such things, but Bob's putting this kind of information on the map. And I think that's marvelous. It's fun to have the map in front of us again so we could see these kinds of details and other details that Bob's working on and is very nicely putting on the map. I think we can all see the amount of work required to get a map, to produce a map of this sort in a way that is understandable, at least by people who have real interest in the facts. These are going to be fantastic. Of course, most of the people in the town won't care. They just want to know how to get out. If there certainly is a fire or a earthquake causing great difficulties. I hope we get to the point where the town really understands these things. I see that we have a long way to go to get to that point, but this is a marvelous beginning. And I would hope at the next meeting, we could have these maps in front of us and sit around and point to them and understand the details that are there, which we can't see this way. So thank you, Bob, for what you have done. And I thank you, Nan, for the work that you have done working with Bob to get this work for the evacuation committee accomplished. We're making good progress. Obviously, we have a ways to go, but I'm pleased that we are where we are today. And I thank the subcommittee for its work.
Well, thank you, Chet. Yeah, it's especially Bob has put in oodles and oodles of time. I have another clarification from Pat, and this is to Bob. Mentioning the sewer, she said not for the maps. So she wasn't talking about sewer on the map, putting the sewer map on the map. She says rather just mention in text, which I can do. Pat, I'll do that. She says it's more significant in terms of sheltering in place if we have to do that than for evacuation.
Yeah.
So that's true. Good point. So if
Mhm.
we have to stay, Chet, if we can't evacuate, and we have to have people stay, for instance, a group of people sheltering at the Sequoias, an open space, then having sewage, sewage available would be more important than if you've
We're going to need all sorts of things if we have a real problem.
Yeah,
That is certainly one of them.
well, we've
How to get water somehow, which we don't yet know what the status of our water system might be in an earthquake. Where, the water lines from our big tanks might be broken. We hope that the water people are aware of what needs to be done to make certain that water flow is possible. But so these are just additional things that we need to work on. And I'm sure that we will in time.
Yeah, Chet, you mentioned this trouble spot on Portola Road, which Bob has talked to me about too. I think it's worth mentioning or talking about in some detail. Bob, would
Okay.
you
Well,
do the
thank,
near Searsville Lake.
yeah. First of all, a couple of things. One, as far as this topic that we're talking about with the earthquake evacuation plan, the next biggest goal, as far as I can see, we haven't talked about this yet, but I want to just throw it in there, is that we really want to get feedback from the other parties, because this is a document, are creating maps and text that's to go into the town's evacuation plan. And we want to know what is the reaction to what we've got so far. And as a status report to the committee and to the public who are watching this meeting, we don't have much feedback yet, and that's really an essential thing to get. We want to talk to the fire district, and I think we've talked to Nan has talked to Rob Young, the head of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, but I would personally would like to know more from the other committee members of the Emergency Preparedness Committees, and what's their reaction to what we've created. What changes do they want? Yes, I've created some maps, but I'm fully anticipating that the maps will be changed because somebody will come up with some suggestion, and that's okay, because I'm expecting that. Going back to the question where you asked me about like just Portola Road, two points. Portola Road in the area near Searsville, that's a spot where it could be completely impassable after a major earthquake, because the San Andreas Fault crosses the road there. There's also a zone that's orange, which shows that there's a higher susceptibility to liquefaction. Whether liquefaction occurs there or not is really unknown. It's just that that's the way it's been mapped. But if it does occur, as has happened in Loma Prieta near the coast, where there's a thick road bed, the weight of the roadbed in a zone of liquefaction, the roadbed will sink into the ground. That's what happened on the coast in Loma Prieta. And when it sinks, the ground, it doesn't just do it uniformly, it's uneven. There are also two culverts, or two pipes, it's one culvert. And it's unfortunately a corrugated metal pipe, which is the worst material in terms of being able to withstand something like an earthquake. There was a study about culverts, and the corrugated metal pipe performed the worst of all available materials. So in this little section, we've got three things. Man, go.
Yeah. Right.
What happened?
No, it'd be nice to be able to see that sort of thing.
I'd like to.
I know it's there, but that's different from really seeing it.
Yeah, the culverts and things are, nobody knows that they're there. You have to get out of your car to find the culvert, which I did. In Loma Prieta, there was no liquefaction in that zone, but that earthquake was in October at the end of the dry season, where you would not expect to see something like that occurring at the end of the dry season. If we had an earthquake, say in February or March or April, when the ground is highly saturated and the ponds are full, maybe you get a completely different reaction. We just don't know. As far as I want to talk hopefully briefly about the topic of sheltering in place and of everything that's needed. I feel that the document that we've created so far is a good document to help people understand needs of how an earthquake can affect people and the ability to evacuate. I think there's a lot more that can be added that's helpful to the town, especially for sheltering in place. I feel that is an effort that will be at least equal to what we've accomplished so far. But my proposal is to not stop everything and to try to get it all done. Let's see what we can get into the works with what we've got so far. Hopefully what we have is agreeable to the other committees. And so this to me is version 1. And there can always be a version 2 or 3 or whatever. And we can add more. As far as the things that are on my mind to add to it, we could have, like I just spent a few moments describing the actual difficulties of Portola Road near Searsville Lake. That information ought to be written in a text that's in the report. And we could even have a map that is focused on that particular area so that anybody who really wants to understand that, they can have a little tiny page or two that explains it. And there are other parts of the town. I'll just mention three without going into details. Willowbrook Road, Blue Oaks, which has the San Andreas Fault going through it, Woodside Highlands, which is Wayside Drive, Santa Maria, and Hayfields. They've got some real serious challenges for being able to evacuate, and all because trees and landslides and things. There could be some text that helps explain to those people that live there what are the peculiarities for that little neighborhood. And there are multiple places. Those are three examples, but there are multiple places in the town where I think it would be helpful to add some descriptive information of what are some of the things that are unique to different parts of the town. My current proposal is if this is what we've got so far, and there's a desire to get this published and out soon, well, let's get what we've got, modify it so that at least what we've tried to accomplish can be turned in. But then let's think about what to add to make it even better. Thank you.
And we might duplicate something that's already been done. And please tell us exactly what has been presented to the evacuation committee, to the fire department, or any other group at this stage. Where are we in that work? What has been given?
Well, for the entire report, there's text plus the maps. The maps are an integral part of the report. The report has been sent, this version of the report has been sent to the 4 people on the Emergency Preparedness Committee, the 3 people on their subcommittee, plus 1 other person who is working with the town, coordinating with the, okay. The Emergency Preparedness Committee has, months ago, last summer, put out a draft of the evacuation plan. The evacuation plan had a hole in it for wildfire triggered by earthquake. We proposed to fill that hole. Chet and Bob and I went to their meeting and we made the proposal. They accepted it, and that triggered our writing this addition to the evacuation plan. Okay. So there were, as I said, 3 subcommittee members and for the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and now a 4th person from their committee who is acting as liaison with the town and with the fire district. So he's making sure that everything's coordinated and working. Politically, I won't say politically, bureaucratically, politically. And so they all have copies of this report. I've also sent a copy of this report to the fire district, and I've requested a meeting. And that was just yesterday. It's the 2nd time I've contacted the fire district. So we'll see what they say.
Have you met with these groups? Have you personally met with these groups and talked to them about where we are in this work?
We weren't quite ready to present anything to the entire Emergency Preparedness Committee, but we can do that at the next meeting. That's been discussed. So I think that's probably a good idea. So one of us should go and present what we've done so they can see what we've done. So the entire committee. Rob Young, who was the primary author of the main evacuation plan, has met with Bob and Gary and me, and Rob and I have stayed in contact. So check in occasionally to see how things are proceeding. They are in contact with the fire district. The fire district likes their plan. And interestingly, the town of Woodside's equivalent of our Emergency Preparedness Committee apparently really likes the plan and may adopt it before we do. So Bob and I have been talking about the possibility of working with the fire district rather than just the town, widening the scope of the plan. That means doubling the map, and twice the map worked for Bob. But most of the concerns that we have are equally valid for Woodside. San Andreas runs right through them. They have secondary faults. They have the same evacuation issues, maybe slightly different roads, but the issues are the same. So the next step will be, if this committee agrees to think about, make inquiries about widening the scope, next step would be to go and try to talk to the people in Woodside and the fire district to see whether there's any interest in a combined plan that would cover town of Woodside, town of Portola Valley, and the what do you call it, the
I certainly think that
areas
Bob,
around.
as the author of these maps, ought to meet with these other committees personally,
I'm sure,
and I hope it
that's
happens.
fine. If Bob wants to, that's fine.
Bob knows that we're not completely finished, but at some point, I would think soon, we should have Bob be showing these maps to these other groups so that they understand completely where we are and the kinds of details that we're producing. Apparently, from what I know, talking to Bob, Bob's maps are much better than what the evacuation committee has looked up so far. Our contributions, I think, are going to be extremely to the town, to Woodside as well as and I think that it would be good for Bob to have a good rapport with other groups that want to know the details of our map work.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Just for background information for everybody else. This work is done in Adobe Illustrator, and I have created the files. I have two files, one for each scale. It's been an interesting challenge to keep them both in sync. But I have made for those who work in Illustrator, the background artwork was originally made with anticipation that this might happen, expanding to include Woodside. And so the artwork is already there to include all of Woodside and the entire fire protection district. What's missing are the details that are in the town of Portola Valley. Like, we have all the little roads, not named, but you can see on the maps the roads. So the little roads, the minor roads, need to be added. The major roads have already in the thing. The geology needs to be added. There's a lot of work to be done, but at least the infrastructure is already in place to make it happen. The one thing that I am very reluctant to make any commitment to is a time frame of when I could actually accomplish what I've accomplished in Portola Valley for the town of Woodside. There's a lot of other work that I think is important to the town of Woodside that we need to talk about when we talk about other topics that I want to work on. And as far as the town of Woodside, I'm willing to work with them, but just I don't want a gun to my head as far as, and I do not want to give any expectation as to when I can get any of this done. For those who have experience in working in Illustrator, it's sometimes referred to, excuse the expression, Illustrator hell. It's because it takes a lot of time. Personally, I find that when I take on a project, I will look at it and have my own ideas how long it will take, and I'll add some factor like double or triple it, thinking, well, it's going to take that long. And usually my long-term estimate, usually it's wrong also. So I just don't have any confidence that I can say it's going to take so much time to get it done. And I feel like if I were to make a statement that I'm really lying to myself and to everybody else. And so I'm not going to do that. So if there's any expectation to get it done, at least from us, it's I think the best thing to do is set expectation is that I'm willing to do it, but just don't put a gun to my head, and I may not get done in a timely fashion that pleases others, but we'll do the best we can.
This brings up an important point that I would like to get across. This little subcommittee has put out an enormous amount of work. What has fallen on the shoulders of three people, especially on Bob, who's doing the map work, is actually incredible. It's really too much. Should not put this much burden on individuals. Well, this is why this Geologic Safety Committee must be careful in accepting work that could be done for the town. There are only a few of us, and we have our own personal, professional lives to work on also. So I am very concerned about the amount of work that this little subcommittee has had to do and still must do. There's a lot yet to be, because Bob wants to take on every little detail possible, and I think Nan does too. And it's worrisome to me that we are going down this path. There are other things that need to be done in this town. We can't do everything very rapidly. And I wish the town, and I wish every member of this committee fully realize the amount of work that this subcommittee has done and will continue to have to do. I wish that we could figure out ways to decrease the burden so that people have their own personal lives that they can work on also.
Chet, yeah, I absolutely agree. And Pat has a comment along those lines. She said, she has a question. Does the town of Woodside have a Bob equivalent who could assist him? It's a big job for him to take on. So yes, she's,
The town of Woodside doesn't even have a Geologic Safety Committee equivalent.
no, they have an emergency, the equivalent of the emergency
They don't have quite
preparedness.
what we have. They
Good.
don't have the facilities. They're not making the kinds of maps that we're working on. Bob has to do that.
Well, the other possibility would be to hire Cotton Shires to do it. All right.
And that would bring up all
Well,
sorts of problems.
That would be, well, I want to jump in here. We're sort of jumping ahead. We're assuming.
Wait, before you get into that, could I finish? 1 second, just
Sure.
1 second. So what is the sense of the committee about even broaching the subject of widening the scope? So everyone realizes that it would be a huge undertaking in terms of the map work, not so much for any text of the report, but the map is the main thing. So do we want just to wait and see if someone else suggests it, or?
That's a good idea. I mean, we're sort of jumping ahead. We're talking that during this meeting that we're using our meeting time now to talk about something where we haven't gotten the feedback from the Woodside Fire Protection District. We don't from the town of Woodside themselves. We don't know. They haven't. Maybe they have seen the map, but I don't know. But it would be nice for them to actually speak up and tell us what they think. If they have their own little, if they want to take something like this and do their own thing, God bless them. Go for it. I don't know let's find out what they think. There are things for the town that I think are important. I'd like to at least at some point in this meeting bring the topic up, and then we can talk about them in future meetings. I'll just do it now. There's the Baracal Fault and the Black Mountain Fault, things that I think that the committee needs to understand. Why are those faults on this map? And nobody has really been given the information to have an informed opinion as to whether or not that is appropriate.
Yeah.
Those maps are among the things that members of this committee could work on professionally. We only have so much time to do that. Subcommittee work takes up almost all possible time that's available. This is worrisome. I wanted to bring it up so that everybody understands that.
So why don't,
So I look forward to the next meeting where I would hope we could actually see these maps, talk about them, have them in front of us, gather around them so that we can look at them at close range, and try to understand the details and ask Bob questions about what is present, what might still be added. Hopefully we can come to some kind of a conclusion so that Bob doesn't have to spend his life months or at least many more weeks,
Yeah.
many weeks, as I see coming up in his life. And I just feel as though this is an awful lot, and we still have a long way to go. I want everybody to understand that fully.
Yeah.
Is there more to talk about concerning this?
no,
Troy's raising his hand.
oh, Troy,
In my opinion, it's very important that this committee and the town council of Portola Valley work very carefully and closely with the fire department, fire district. A word of warning, there's a new fire chief. There's a new deputy fire chief who literally took office this week. And one of the battalion chiefs is new, and the fire marshal is new.
Wow.
So that's essentially all of the top of the fire department. And there'll be a while, I'm sure, settling into their new responsibilities. Especially the chief and the deputy chief, because the jobs that they are now involved with are very different from anything they've ever done for the district in the past. That's all I have to say.
no, I agree with you. And I just got an email back from Kim Giuliacci, who's the new fire marshal. And she said they're available to meet toward the end of the month. So, okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's assume that before our next meeting, we will have touched base with the fire district. Okay, the new fire marshal emailed me back. I just got the email. And she said they're available for a meeting toward the end of January. So by our next meeting, we should be able to, we will have touched base to help with the fire district. Okay.
And if it seems appropriate, we could have them, one of their members, come to our meeting like this meeting and understand more, in more detail what we are doing and how much they are to be a part of what we are doing. That might be possible.
Yeah, we can invite them. Yeah, make a note. It's a good idea.
We need to move on. There are other things to talk about. Have we exhausted the work of the subcommittee for this particular meeting? Yeah,
I don't have anything more to discuss about
Bob,
this.
do you have anything more?
No, this is fine.
I wish Jerry were here and
He's online. He can speak up.
fine, but that's not the same as being right here with us.
But there is,
Gary, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the common wisdom has been that we may want to eventually include Woodside in some of our future deliberations, but we need to finish up as closely as we can, enough for home to get something ready for Portola Valley that we can provide to the citizens. So it's really important to get that done before you take another step. But I would say that because it sounds like Woodside really likes ours, that's the highest form of praise. So we've got something good here, folks. I think we should not spend an incredible amount of time tweaking it. Everything is in progress. Nothing is ever completed geologically.
Right.
So
point.
I think we should get out what we can soon and then to explore ways in which we can help Woodside with their problems.
Oh, okay. Gary, thank you. I have a comment from Pat also. She says, let's finish this contribution first. She's in
Yeah.
agreement with Gary. It's almost done, in my opinion. Then return to the Woodside question when we have a completed product. Okay, and that's Pat. And then she had a thought, would drones help in post-earthquake road damage assessment? I think so.
Say that, I didn't, your last statement, what was?
Would
Oh.
drones help right after an earthquake for road damage assessment? And I think, yeah,
That would be wonderful.
yeah, good idea.
Gary, I would like to ask your help in one interesting, what I think is an interesting thing to do. You have more knowledge probably than most of us here, maybe all of us, and what is required for reports. You've been involved in professional reports for all of your life, and you know what can be used and how to get things done. I would like you to take a little time to see what Bob is having to do to complete something for this committee so that we can get things done without worrying about every possible little detail. We need somebody like you who can look at the perspective of the entire focus needed. So I would appreciate your taking the time to meet with Bob Mann once in a while with my
Well,
in mind.
well, I hope we've been doing that, but I'm somewhat
you have been doing
terrified by your by your assessment of what my capabilities are. I have been involved, but I am a foreigner to the local geology, as I was when I was at UCLA. I knew nothing about the geology of the LA basin. It's a similar situation here. As close as I can come is Pacheco Pass. And I don't think it's quite the same problem. But yeah, I will help Bob all I can. I have my limitations from age as well as any other man, but I will do what I can. And I
I know
feel
that
that
you've been doing it, and I thank you. And I
Okay.
just wanted to make this additional request because I want to see as much efficiency brought into the process as can be brought into it.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
the map is the proof of the pudding, as you so eloquently mentioned earlier, but Bob has done the job
All right.
on the ground as well as on the map.
Agenda.
Yeah.
It's all on the agenda.
I know, but.
So what, I'm going to jump in, and we've been talking about what we've accomplished so far. We've talked about the Woodside Fire Protection District. We talked about expanding the scope of the project going into Woodside. There's a topic that I want to just talk about briefly enough so that we can have it on a better discussion in a future meeting. I don't want to take any more than what I'm about to say, because we've already taken up an hour and we want to wrap this up. But the Baracal Fault and the Black Mountain Fault, I would like to produce a packet of illustrations so that I don't think we can have the time to write a professional publication ready report, but my hope is like a PowerPoint presentation and some illustrations and some text to go with it, minimal text, to help explain to everybody what are we thinking? Because we're sort of being revolutionaries here. We're putting things on the map that are not on the town's geologic map. And why? Whose bright idea was that? And is it any good? There are lots of very seasoned professionals that I respect all of you very much. And I'm not a professional, and it's kind of bold for me to just go out and unilaterally do this. Everybody needs to be informed as to why and have your own opinions. And I very much want to know your opinions. This was not something where I'm trying to railroad something. I want your opinions. It needs to be approved.
Okay, yeah, let me just add that the Black Mountain Fault was observed in 1906 to have moved in Portola Valley. It's not on any current map, but the Baracal Fault is on the USGS map, but it's not on the town map. So that also probably moved in 1906, we think. But that really needs a lot of discussion. Bob has, for full disclosure, put both of the maps on the fault. So, but they're not on the town's map.
Yeah.
One of them's on the USGS map. So we really need to discuss whether we want this map to show all potential blockages of the roads, and these would be potential blockages if they moved in 1906, but just aren't on the current maps, or whether we don't let us scare people and we take them off. Okay, so there are two ways of looking at this.
Well, geologically speaking, we are often surprised by a major fault that's moved that we hadn't known of before. That happened in Southern California recently. But the point I think that we make, it's better to have too many faults on the map than too few. There are always more than we've ever known anyway.
That's right. That's very good. Thank you, Gary.
Are these two faults mentioned in that 1908 report?
But they didn't know about Baracal Black Mountain, yes.
The
And-
Black Mountain
But
Fault was.
and it's on a map. Can you see this? Okay, but in Baracal comes in this way, and it's on the USGS map, and it goes, the Baracal stops in Portola Valley in the Priory Field at Portola Road, where it hits an alluvial unit, and they can't find it, so they stopped. The preliminary map of that fault showed it going along Corte Madera Creek up towards Searsville Lake. They did not stop it. That's where they thought it went. But then when they actually published the final map, they stopped it where they, were sure it was. Okay. So the Black Mountain Fault is problematic, and then it probably goes into people's houses.
That was the one that was described in the 1908.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, and what we can do is bring together the text from the Lawson report in 1908 on the 1906 earthquake, and all the map evidence. So that's something we can all do.
Just as a tease for the future, it's a rather interesting story that I will wait for the future to explain. But how did we get a map, a fault that's in the biggest report, the Lawson report on the 1906 earthquake? How is it that it's been published there and it's been ignored in all the contemporary mapping? There is a backstory to that, and I'll just have to say, stay tuned, and we'll talk about it in a future meeting.
I think we should put on the map whatever we think is reasonable. It may not be the final word.
Yep.
But at least having something to suggest that there are additional faults that have not been given much consideration lately, like the Black Mountain and Baracal. If we know something about them and feel confident enough to put at least something on the map that at least tells people that we know about these faults and that there are additional faults that haven't been paid much attention to. I think Gary's right. There probably are still other faults that we may learn about all of a sudden someday that nobody knows about right now. That putting on the map what we know, I should think would be the thing to do. Let the town know what this committee understands about the geology, at least at this moment. Are there more things to talk about concerning this particular subcommittee's work? Nan?
No, I have nothing more.
I look forward to the next meeting when we can get down to more details about the committee's work. Now that the committee's work has been given to all of us on the committee, and therefore to everybody in the town who's interested. We can all talk to one another about the product, and I look forward to that possibility. So let's move on to the next item of the agenda, which is the budget of the committee. And Mary, can you tell us what you know about our budget? Well, okay, Nan, whoever knows something about, we've talked about things that we want money for example, to be able to conduct business with Cotton Shires. We haven't done that, but it's nice to know that there is some, we do have money for that sort of contact if we choose to take it up. What can you tell us about it, Nan?
Okay, thank you, Chet. So this is the time of year when we have to submit a work plan and budget to the town council for the next fiscal year. So we're talking about July 1st this year to June 30th, 2025, which seems a long way off, but it's not really. So the budget is determined by the work plan and the town council's granting us the money. So what I'd like to do first is give a mid-year update on our work plan for this year. And then a lot of this work is going to continue into next year. So I've given you a handout. This hand, you have one here. Okay, so I have a handout. You need another one, Seth?
No, we're okay.
Okay, so in red, I've got mid-year update. So the work plan is as we submitted it to the town council last year, and it was for the 23-24 fiscal year, and it's fairly detailed. And the red is where we are now. It's a mid-year update. So just really quickly, thing Bob was talking about research on faults, especially Barracal and Black Mountain. I've listed as ongoing, and we've also added local earthquakes starting in 1838 because we've done the research on that. We need a little more information on the Monte Vista fault, and the Barracal and Black Mountain fault are in here. So that's started, it's continuing, and we could probably have some sort of report together for next meeting on Barracal and Black Mountain. Here, cascading hazard and risk analyses, we haven't done. I thought we could, but the software, you need 2 pieces of software for this, and they're not compatible. The versions are not compatible at the moment, so I'll keep looking. It's ridiculous. So I cannot run HAZUS, which is FEMA's hazard and risk analysis program, on the version of ArcGIS, which is a geographic information system that it needs. The current version of HAZUS runs on an older version of ArcGIS, and I can only get the new version of ArcGIS, which the current version of HAZUS does not work on. So once that's settled, once they're in sync and I can get both versions, then we could look at hazard and risk analyses. It's ridiculous. Evacuation planning, yeah, we've been working on that. Okay, so that was proposed at a year ago, even before we knew that the evacuation plan was coming out. So we were foresighted. Okay. So under C, safety earthquake preparedness and education program, that's in our charter. To have an earthquake safety and education program. It is our job to inform residents of the town of Portola Valley of the issues involved in earthquake safety. Okay, so that is a subject that can develop tentacles, and all we've done so far is look at the evacuation very narrowly. That we will, we can talk about expanding it. Okay, resiliency. Map the road crossings with all known faults for the benefit of the town and utilities. It's pretty much done. Thanks to Bob. Meet with the other safety committees, town staff, utility companies, and I should put the fire district. Well, we've met with DPC, town manager, and informally, I've talked to the chair of the wildfire preparedness committee. So that's coming. So we need to keep in touch very closely, I think, with the fire district at this point. Define long-term goals for resiliency, and we're talking about what it takes for the town to survive and thrive ultimately as a town after a large damaging earthquake. It's entirely possible that people would decide to move to their second homes and never come back from here. So the town could die after a large earthquake if it's not resilient. So there has to be resiliency built in somewhere. We haven't talked about that. Research the methods to protect utility lines and roads from earthquakes and landslides. That hasn't been done. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Long-term plan. So this is organized according to the town council's stated priorities for the 23-24 fiscal year. Safety, resiliency, long-term planning, forward-thinking planning, fiscal responsibility and accountable governance, and I included transparency here. So one thing we talked about was revising the geologic map update process to be public and transparent and have the new process approved. And for that, so we're not happy with the way some of the map changes have been done in the past. Basically, Cotton Shire says, goes before the planning commission and they say, here are the changes to the map, and planning commission says, okay. So if we want to have a say in any changes to the map, then we need to speak up and work with Cotton Shires to make sure that that happens. And Bob mentioned this, we were talking about getting hold of the older hard copy geotechnical reports, some of which are, maybe buried in the town's archives, but Bob, you said you know that Cotton Shires has some of them in its office. So we could start, once again, we'd have to work with Cotton Shires, talk to them, get their permission to access the materials, the physical paper materials they have. And we could start this year. Yeah, Bob.
So I want to mention very briefly, quick, three things. One, the meeting's going long, and I appreciate Mary being our liaison, staying here for all this time and what you're doing. To the town council, things like the budget are always important. We've been allocated something like $3,000, but is it correct that so far we haven't spent any of it? We've done all of this without any money. Is that correct?
Well, that's next, yeah.
Okay.
So go to the next page of the handout. Okay. Flip the page. Do you have the handout? Oh. This is for Bob. Okay, so we just went through the first page with the red annotations. Flip the page, and that's the budget for this year that was approved by the town council. They gave us $3,900, of which we have not spent a cent. And all the printing, Bob hasn't charged the town for, but maybe should.
That's true.
But the maps. That the proposal, I would propose to ask the town council to roll over the money, if any unspent money till next year. Roll it, if we spent any money to add it to continue at 3,900, because that's what I think where I think we should be. Pat has mentioned an interesting speaker. I have someone else who's been doing trenching on the San Andreas south of here, who might be willing to speak to us. And so I put in a couple of honoraria for them in case we get speakers. The large item is, and that's just a guess, 3,000 for consulting with Cotton Shires. So if we get involved in, I don't know how much they charge an hour, but no one seems to know. But this is estimated at 1 hour a month, so that may be overly optimistic that we'll get an hour at this time a month, but I would like to propose that we continue asking the town council for 3,900 for the next fiscal year. Okay, so the next page, the third page, is for fiscal year 24-25. Okay. And here are the things that most of the items are continuations of this year's work plan. Okay. But there are a few things that haven't been started and really could use some help. On. For instance, the business about resiliency of infrastructure. It just takes people to contact the utilities, contact Howard Young, contact the utilities, make sure everyone's on the same page, and get the maps of the utility systems. I was in contact with the what is it, West Bay Sanitary District, the sewer people, a couple of years ago, and they just sent me their map. I've got the map of the sewer system
Wow.
in PDF. Yeah, so maybe we can get the others. Maybe the PG&E may be a little more closed. But Steve, you were talking about the earthquake hazards workshop.
Yeah.
Last year, there was a speaker from PG&E who was talking about how they're approaching protecting their lines, the gas, especially the gas lines across the Green Valley Fault up near Benicia. And I've got his name, and maybe we can get him to talk, or maybe he would know someone who knows someone who understands this area who could talk with us. So I'm thinking that might be a possibility. But is there anyone, Troy and Steve, be willing to work together on the resiliency end of things? Put in a little time to investigate the resiliency of the infrastructure. What are the utilities
So
doing?
man, when you talk about spending some time on this, are you really talking about maybe contacting some of those companies and trying to get some kind of a relationship with them and get information out of them? Is that the kind of activities that you're asking others to participate in?
Wait, I can barely hear.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
You just asked for other people to work on resiliency, and I was just trying to characterize, well, what does that work mean?
What it means, yes.
Does that
Okay.
mean talking to the utilities and getting a relationship with them and trying to get some information out of them? Is that part of the work? Okay.
Yes, that would be a lot of it. And then see if we can get maps of the utilities, in which case we could produce a map for professionals, as I think Chet was talking about, that has utilities on it in addition to the faults and the bridges and the culverts and the liquefaction and landslides. If you could, gentlemen, be willing to, really? That would be wonderful if you could.
Is that something you want to do? You want to be the person to contact these people and see whether they can help us? If it costs money, we would have the money to use. Is that what you want to do?
So we've got fire department, PG&E, sewer people,
Water,
you know,
which is a Bear Gulch, yeah. And then the town, also the town, Howard Young. I once talked to Howard informally about this. We just had a quick conversation. And he said that right in front, right here, right in front of the town center. I think it was PG&E. Or maybe it was the water company was doing something with the pipes that he thought was related to protection from earthquakes because there's a known fault crossing. Okay. But other than that, I know nothing.
Just to add to telecommunications, cable telecommunications like AT&T and the phone company and the cable people. I don't think that's nearly as important as the other utilities, but nobody wants to be after an earthquake. Nobody wants to be disconnected from the internet.
Yeah, and talk to
They don't know what they're doing. How are they going to communicate that to us?
so I would also talk to Ray Rothrock, I think it is, of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, who's involved in in radio, I don't know what to say, resiliency of radio after an earthquake, especially ham radio.
Yeah.
So there are the cell phone companies, there are possibly landlines, and then there's ham radio, and then there's the town radio, that's 1680 AM.
So Dan, you just said something I think could be really helpful to anybody who takes on this project, which is, we've got, the town has the Emergency Preparedness Committee, a committee that I know very little about, but on paper at least, it seems like we could perhaps work with them to help in a coordinated way get this information. It shouldn't necessarily be all on our shoulders as a committee to get this information. Can we leverage, and then maybe somebody else can also help get some of this? Those are resources that maybe will be helpful, maybe not.
That's a really good idea. They may know a lot of this already, and if they don't, they should know it. Just have the information. Typically, they haven't been focused on earthquakes, not at all.
Yeah, but when you're dealing even with fires and things, it makes sense to have a relationship with utilities.
Yeah, it's good. They have a new chair, Chris Raines, RAANES. Just as of January 1st, but apparently he's been chair of the EPC before. That's all I know.
It would be nice to move
Thank you.
ahead and get contact with some of these people. When to do it with all the other work that we're doing. The question to be worked out. Personally, as I see it, all the work that this committee as a whole is doing right now. We ought to get a little bit farther along with the work that we are doing now in the subcommittee. Then consider contacting some of these other agencies. That's just the way I happen to feel it. You just have enough to do.
Yeah.
Your response.
I'll respond. I mean, Nan, you've asked other people who are not part of our subcommittee to do other things. So I mean, there's bandwidth within our committee. You haven't asked me to take on some of these resilient thing issues. I'm not going to do it.
Nor will I.
And so I think it's, if people are willing, there are some things that can be done going forward without necessarily involving the entire committee. Talking to these utility companies. Somebody can get that information, that would be great. I don't see that we have to wait to get the subcommittee's work done before we take on any other things. It's just a question of who does it.
Okay, so let's see. We may need to form an official subcommittee here for utility resiliency. And there's space for one more person if Bob wants to, or Pat or Gary wants to, yeah. Volunteer. No. But,
I would propose, well, I don't know, I'll let my suggestion is that this is a topic that's fresh, it's new. Well, do we form a subcommittee now, or can it wait until the next meeting to at least let people sleep on this and try to digest what are we talking about?
Good suggestion.
Okay. You just want to investigate informally then? Or, I'm sorry, you want to,
I guess I asked you something, Mary, a little prematurely, but I guess the town does have money that we can spend if we need to. Is that correct? And we-
Yeah.
Authorizing the subcommittee.
so the,
I think it would be good to contact Great Needs. Concerned about the time required, how much time we have for everything else being done. The work of the subcommittee right now is so enormous, so much yet to be done. I just, personally, hesitant to move forward very much. It's something that we don't really have the time to work on.
well, on the other hand, Chet, if we start the resiliency work now, it's related to the maps, and it would flow into the comprehensive map that has everything on it that you were talking about for the professionals. It's important. And it's something we've been talking about for a year.
I know. You put on your shoulders, and I'm thinking of even more things.
Yeah, so the proposal is for Troy and Steve to form a new subcommittee, yeah?
They're willing to do that.
If
that
they're
would be
willing.
marvelous.
Okay, you guys willing? Okay.
Billy Coy and Steve, are you knowing all of this enough to understand what you could do that would be a great help?
Yes.
I think that's marvelous.
Just the one thing I please ask, don't make me try to do anything with AT&T.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, dear, yes.
Well, that's
Okay,
fine.
Chet, I move that we establish a new subcommittee called, I don't know what you call resiliency subcommittee, composed of Troy and Steve. And there's space for one more if Pat or Gary wants to be involved.
I would second that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Want to call the vote?
So, the committee wants this to happen.
Yeah, I say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Well, Troy and Steve, it would be marvelous if you could really help out on this.
Yeah, what?
Because there is work that needs to be done, there's no doubt about it. And your help.
Okay, Pat has,
Very
I'll
much
see.
appreciated.
Pat has a text. Pat has a comment here. She says that she's still trying to understand how progress would work, plan of action. For instance, how to approach the utility companies worried about liability may take some finesse. Okay. So, all right, yeah. Lucian's laughing, okay. So, yeah, she's right. So there may be some reluctance to offer information. It may not be like the sewer company that just sends you the map. The engineer sent me the map. But,
Was it the sewer company separate from California Water? It's a separate
yeah,
entity?
it's a West Bay Sanitary
Oh,
District, which
great, great. I've
covers
seen their pumping
Menlo
stations.
Park and us and.
So Troy and Steve, could you give us a report next meeting? would be nice to have at least a preliminary report of what you know about who we could contact and who might actually give us some time. We appreciate that. Is that all right with you two, both of you?
If you guys can't do it in a month, you know, I mean, it's taken our,
I'll just say a report about what your thoughts are concerning contact and what, just what you might be learning in this next month. And know, or talking with Nan. Nan knows a lot about these people and it would be nice for the committee as a whole to understand a little bit better the next meeting, where we are in this process, even if we don't move very much farther than. But we need some information. So, thank you for whatever you can do.
Yeah, thanks very much for taking this on, for being volunteered or volunteering.
Hmm.
That would help tremendously, because this is a big hole in our, in the work that we really need to do. And something we've known about for a year and we just haven't had the bandwidth to tackle. It would be great if you can help. Chet, I have just two more quick, I hope quick items here. One is the budget. Can we have a, I guess I move that we ask the town council for the same budget next year, $3,900.
Second,
Okay, so
Anybody say aye to approve?
I,
aye.
okay, good. Oh, because this may come up before the next meeting, town council.
That's fine.
And, okay, that's one, and
Nice to know that well, here we are at the new calendar year. It'd be nice to know that we really. Thank you.
yeah, it's for next fiscal year. Yeah, that's right. We have it, yeah. Okay, so the only other item I have concerns the safety element of the general plan, which Pat and I formed a subcommittee to comment on in June, I think, of 2022. And then there was another draft consultants put out, and then we were allowed to ask questions about it in November of 2022. And this was over a year ago. And then the town published the questions and answers in January of 2023. And we have had zero information since then. So the question of supposedly there's going to be maybe an ad hoc committee on the safety element or the way there was on the housing element. If there is, does this committee want to try to ask for representation on that committee? It would
Yeah.
mean someone's putting in a lot of meeting time and going over documents. So Pat and Gary, I'd like to hear from you on that too. Pat, you were involved in the safety element and may have an opinion on this. So if there is an ad hoc safety element committee, and I don't know whether there will be, Mary's looking like the Cheshire Cat there. Okay, Pat says, explain what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is that if there is a committee, we probably would like to be able to represent our point of view, our sections of the safety element. Because we had some very strong opinions and we want to be sure that they actually get through to the final safety element, into the final safety element.
Hmm.
Is that enough?
What?
She's typing. Let's see what she says, because she was involved in this. Bullseye. See what she says. She says, sure. With caveat, I'll be traveling a lot over the next few months, so she'd probably be willing to undertake this. Or maybe you could, Pat, if you'd be willing to do this, that would be great. That really would be great. And I could serve as your backup for meetings if you're not going to be there. We could do it that way. The two of us wrote comments on the safety element. The original, the consultants produced an original draft. We commented on it, asked for changes, and then, you know, occasionally they took our changes, usually didn't. So she says, so asked to join the ad hoc committee. Yes, but we don't know that it's going to be formed. We don't know that's what they will do. I just wanted to be proactive about this. And in case there is a committee formed the way they did for the housing element. If they don't, then it's a moot point and you're out of a job. Yeah. Okay. All right. Mary, do you know where that stands? No? She says no. So there's been no movement on the safety element, which is required to be in conformance with the housing element at this point.
Changes are being made to the safety element in conjunction with the housing element. Whether we're going to do how we're going to do the complete review, I don't think we have figured that out yet.
Yeah, changes. The safety element, last I saw it was in draft and it was in conformance with
Yes,
the housing
it's in
element that
draft.
existed at the time, the draft housing element, and it will be changed to be in conformance with the new housing element. Will it also have the other changes that people have been talking about? And then there's the question of the maps. The fire maps.
I don't know.
And you're staying out of it wisely. Okay. Okay, so we should probably. You think we should write a note to Sharif? Okay, that in case there is a committee meeting on the safety element, we would like to representation. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way in case something pops up before our next meeting. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's, I think that's enough about work plans and budgets.
Are we ready for the last topic of the agenda today? Are we ready?
Okay,
Did you finish everything that you wanted? Budget.
budget, no, budget, so we're officially asking for the same budget for next year that we had this year. Okay.
3,900.
I'm glad we have a subcommittee that will think about ways of using that money in very appropriate ways that we've talked about and thought about for quite some time. It would be nice to move forward and get some contact with professional people in the water, gas, electric world. Thank you. The last item for the agenda today is the possibility of changing the personnel of the committee. This is something that Bob said a bit. And I think this is a topic to be brought up. I would personally like Gary to be here with us in a discussion of the change of personnel in the committee.
Well, Gary,
Yeah, I can barely hear him, but he wants me to be at the meeting.
you have to talk into the microphone directly.
Anyway,
Oh, good.
I would like, this is an important topic, and I think that having the bodies right here with us is very important, would be very important. And so I would like to put this particular topic off until next month. We've got enough to do in the meantime. And yes,
Well,
well, it doesn't have to be right now, does it? we have to do it. Pardon? Well, that's okay. I've been on this committee for a long, long time, and we have never had such a requirement. But it's fine that we do have one. And I personally would like to have it next time. We don't have the full complement of people here to discuss it. It's a very important topic. Everybody ought to be here to to listen carefully and be involved. Is that possible, or?
Functioning town. The town council. So
Mary, what, could you, I'm sorry, could you repeat for Pat and Gary? I'm sorry. Make you get up and repeat.
This is a mystery to me right now, what's about to happen to the committee structures in town, because they're changing they're making 3 different categories. They're making manager committees, which are much easier ministerially. They don't have to be a Brown Act committee.
Were those appointed by the town manager?
Yes,
Okay.
those are appointed by the town manager. There's town council committees, which are what you all have always been: geological safety, trails, parks and rec. And those that report to the town council and are appointed by the town council. And then there's something called a group, which people like the Historic Resource Committee, who are just getting together and talking about what's historic in town, want to be part of what's called a group, which just means they can do whatever the heck they want to do, whenever they want to do it. So you all have picked at the current time the hardest category, which does have a number of hoops to jump through, like what we're talking about: annual election of officers, Brown Act requirements, et cetera. And luckily, a lot of our committees have not risen to the challenge of the Brown Act's stuff. So obviously we can have Gary there, whether that is actually fits, whether he's done all the hoops necessary to be absent is mute in a way, because we're not fully compliant, but we're doing the best we can. That's the functionality here, is we're doing the best we can. So that can put it off, it's okay as far as the election is concerned, but you might want to listen to Wednesday's discussion, or at least look at the draft agenda, the agenda for the town council, to see what currently they're offering for committees, because you've been appointed to the hardest category. And that's Wednesday of this week.
We need to have all these categories well in mind for the next meeting.
Okay.
And then, so
Okay, I have a question. So about Brown Act, so maybe I missed something. So for the second type of committee, you have the manager appointed committees, have the council appointed, and you have these more informal groups. For the type where we are, the council advisory committee, do you still have Brown Act and non-Brown Act, or does non-Brown Act go into some other category? Okay, so that's how they handled it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
it's pretty obvious that there are more things to think about than we have ever thought about before. That's why I think we need a little time to catch up, talk to one another, express our own individual feelings about the various positions that are available and how we want to fill them, how we might want to fill them. Are
Okay.
there any other topics to be discussed this evening, this morning?
Okay, just on the election of officers, the only positions we've had so far are chair, vice chair, and secretary. Do we need to think about adding anything else, or is that enough? Enough? Okay,
Yes, we do need to think about those.
so at the next meeting, we'll have an official election of officers for the next
We
year.
will have an election of officers at the next meeting. That's what
For
I
the
said.
three officers, okay. Fine.
If there are no further comments, this meeting can be adjourned. So, anybody propose that we adjourn? Say so.
So moved.
I second that we adjourn.
All who want the meeting to be adjourned at this time, say so.
Bye.
Aye.
There are no no's. The meeting is adjourned.
Pat and Gary, thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm sorry it was hard to hear sometimes, but I think we're getting there. And I think the most important thing is that the other people want our report and our maps so that we're doing something right.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Thank you,
we're
Gary.
getting there. We're moving, which is good.
Well, got this feeling I'll be at the next meeting.
Well, I hope so. I hope you feel
Yeah,
better.
well, yeah, this has gone on longer than I imagined it would, but I don't mean the meeting, I mean whatever it is I have.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Get well, Gary.
Yeah, get well, Gary, get well,
Yeah,
Pat.
well, it's going around. It's really amazing. All right, see you later.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.